Most people think they have a toxin problem. They don't. They have a detoxification problem. And there's one mineral sitting at the center of the whole system that almost nobody talks about. We're going to get to that mineral. But first, you need to understand why everything you've been told about detoxing is backwards. Because once you see how your body actually eliminates toxins, you'll never look at a juice cleanse the same way again. Here's what happens. Someone feels tired all the time, brain fog, headaches that won't quit. They Google their symptoms and land on some article about toxic overload. So they buy a detox kit. Maybe they do a 3-day cleanse. They feel terrible for a few days, then slightly better, and they think it worked. 2 weeks later, they're right back where they started. The reason is simple. The problem was never that they had too many toxins. The problem is their body lost the ability to remove them. Those are two completely different situations, requiring two completely different solutions. Think of it like a clogged drain. You don't have a water problem, you have a drainage problem. Pouring more water down a clogged drain doesn't fix anything. You fix the drain. That's what we're doing today. We're fixing the drain. If you've ever done one of those cleanses and ended up right back where you started, drop that in the comments. I want to see how common this actually is. If you were to build a pyramid of your body's detoxification system, sitting right at the top would be glutathione. You've probably heard it called the master antioxidant. That's not marketing hype. That title is earned. Glutathione operates in every single cell in your body, not just the liver, every cell. Your brain cells, your muscle cells, your skin cells, all of them rely on glutathione to stay clean and functional. But where glutathione does its most critical work, and this is what most people miss entirely, is inside the mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the energy factories of every cell. They take the food you eat and convert it into ATP, the energy currency your body runs on. Everything you do, thinking, moving, breathing, healing, all of it depends on your mitochondria producing enough ATP. When your mitochondria stop working properly, you don't just feel tired. Your entire body starts breaking down. Now here's where glutathione becomes irreplaceable. Your mitochondria produce energy through something called the electron transport chain. It's the final stage of the energy production assembly line inside the mitochondria. And this process, by its very nature, generates reactive oxygen species. Hydrogen peroxide is one of them. Your body actually uses hydrogen peroxide on purpose. It deploys it to kill off pathogens, to destroy damaged cells, to handle infections. It's a weapon, but weapons are dangerous. Hydrogen peroxide is extremely corrosive. Without something to keep it in check, it starts destroying the very structures it's supposed to protect. That something is glutathione. Glutathione neutralizes hydrogen peroxide before it damages mitochondrial membranes. It protects the DNA inside your mitochondria. It shields the electron transport chain itself from oxidative damage. And here's a distinction that matters enormously. Most antioxidants are reactive. They show up after the damage is done and try to clean up the mess. Glutathione is preventative. It stops the damage from happening in the first place. That's a fundamentally different level of protection. And it doesn't stop there. Glutathione protects every membrane in your body. The outer membrane of each cell, the inner membranes surrounding organelles inside the cell, the mitochondrial membranes. All of them depend on glutathione to maintain their structural integrity. When those membranes get damaged, cells can't communicate properly. Nutrients can't get in. Waste can't get out. The whole system starts failing. Here's the part that should concern you. When glutathione levels drop, toxins don't leave your body. They get stuck. They recirculate through your bloodstream, your organs, your tissues. They cycle around and around with nowhere to go. This is why people feel chronically exhausted. This is why the brain fog won't lift. This is where the persistent headaches come from. Not because you encountered more toxins than everyone else. Because your detoxification system ran out of its primary tool. And there's a vicious cycle hiding inside this problem. You need energy to detoxify. The process of packaging toxins, transporting them, and eliminating them requires ATP. But if toxins are damaging your mitochondria can't produce enough ATP. So you can't generate the energy needed to remove the toxins that are destroying your energy production. You're trapped. You're literally bathing in your own toxicity with no way out. This is the real mechanism behind what people experience during weight loss. And it's especially relevant for anyone doing keto or extended fasting. When you burn fat, you're not just liberating stored energy. You're also releasing every toxin that was stored in that fat tissue. Heavy metals, pesticide residues, industrial chemicals. All of it comes flooding back into circulation. If your glutathione levels are strong, your body handles it. If they're not, you feel absolutely terrible. That keto flu people complain about? In many cases, it's a glutathione insufficiency showing its face. The most important function of glutathione is not protecting the liver, despite what you'll read in most health articles. It's protecting the mitochondria. And the reason this matters so much is that mitochondrial dysfunction is now linked to an enormous range of diseases: neurodegeneration, autoimmune conditions, metabolic syndrome, cancer. When mitochondria can't function, cells lose the ability to produce energy through normal aerobic metabolism. Some of them switch to a much more primitive form of energy production. That switch is one of the defining characteristics of cancer cells. Protecting your mitochondria isn't optional. It's fundamental. So the obvious question becomes, why not just take a glutathione supplement, pop a capsule, and call it handled? The problem is that glutathione is notoriously difficult to absorb when taken orally. It breaks down rapidly in the digestive tract. By the time it reaches your bloodstream, most of it has been destroyed. Your body vastly prefers to manufacture glutathione internally. It wants to build it from raw materials, not receive the finished product. To build glutathione, your body needs a few key precursors. First, the amino acids cysteine and glycine. Both are abundant in animal protein, particularly red meat. This is one of the reasons that high-quality animal protein supports detoxification directly. It provides the literal building blocks. But amino acids alone aren't enough. There's one more piece, one tiny trace mineral that activates the entire glutathione system: selenium. A trace mineral means your body needs it in incredibly small amounts. We're talking micrograms, not milligrams. But the fact that you need very little doesn't mean it's unimportant. Selenium is the activator. Without it, you can have all the cysteine and glycine in the world, and your glutathione system still won't fire on all cylinders. But selenium's role goes far beyond glutathione activation. And this is where the picture gets really interesting. Selenium is essential for thyroid function. Specifically, it's required for the conversion of T4 into T3. T4 is the inactive form of thyroid hormone. T3 is the active form. Without adequate selenium, this conversion slows down and you end up functionally hypothyroid even if your TSH levels look normal on a blood test. Now, why does thyroid function matter for detoxification? Because the thyroid controls bile production, and bile is the primary vehicle your body uses to transport fat-soluble toxins out through the intestinal tract. No bile, no detox. It's that straightforward. When your thyroid underperforms, bile production drops. Bile flow slows. The gallbladder, which stores and concentrates bile, doesn't contract properly. There's even a small valve at the junction, where bile enters the small intestine, and that valve's function is regulated by thyroid hormones. The entire bile delivery system depends on your thyroid working correctly. This connection explains something that puzzles a lot of people. Why do hypothyroid patients get constipated? Because they can't produce or release enough bile to keep things moving. Why do they struggle with excess estrogen? Because estrogen is eliminated through bile. If bile is sluggish, estrogen recirculates. Why do people with low thyroid function develop gallstones? Because stagnant bile crystallizes. Every one of these downstream problems traces back to inadequate thyroid function. And inadequate thyroid function traces back, in many cases, to insufficient selenium. So let's connect the full chain. Selenium activates glutathione, which protects your mitochondria and every cell membrane in your body. Selenium enables thyroid hormone conversion, which drives bile production and flow. Bile carries fat-soluble toxins out of your body through your digestive tract. Remove selenium from this equation and the entire system collapses. Glutathione can't activate, the thyroid can't convert, bile can't flow. Toxins accumulate, energy drops, inflammation rises, and you're back to feeling terrible with no clear explanation why. Where do you get selenium? The single best source is Brazil nuts. 2 per day. That's it. 2 Brazil nuts give you the full daily requirement. Eggs are another solid source, assuming they're from quality pastured hens. Organ meats, particularly liver and kidney, are loaded with selenium. Cruciferous vegetables contain some. Shellfish and certain fish carry significant amounts. And here's something fascinating about fish. Species that accumulate higher levels of mercury, like tuna, also tend to carry high levels of selenium. That's not a coincidence. The selenium binds to mercury and neutralizes it. Nature built in its own defense mechanism. The selenium is there specifically to counteract the mercury toxicity. This is why the panic over mercury in seafood is often overstated. The selenium is already there, doing its job. But here's the real problem facing everyone right now. Modern agricultural soils are dramatically depleted of selenium. The food grown in these soils carries far less selenium than it did 50 or 100 years ago. This means even if you're eating the right foods, you may still be falling short. Selenium deficiency isn't rare, it's widespread. And the downstream effects, impaired detoxification, sluggish thyroid, weakened immune response, are becoming the norm rather than the exception. There's one more piece to this system that gets overlooked almost universally. Bile isn't just made by your liver. A significant portion of bile is produced by your gut microbiome. The bacteria in your lower digestive tract synthesize bile acids, and your body recycles roughly 90% of all bile produced. It flows down, does its job, gets reabsorbed, travels back to the liver, and goes through the cycle again. If your microbiome is damaged, you lose an entire production line for bile. Antibiotics, processed food, chronic stress, all of them shred your gut bacteria. And suddenly you've lost a major source of the very substance you need to eliminate toxins. This is why detoxification has to be understood as a complete system. Do you have enough selenium? Is your thyroid converting properly? Is your liver producing bile? Is your gallbladder releasing it? Is your microbiome generating its share? Is your glutathione active and abundant? Every link in this chain has to function. Break any single link and the whole system backs up. And this is exactly what happens to people who jump into aggressive detox protocols without addressing the fundamentals first. They start mobilizing toxins from tissues and fat stores. The liver tries to process them, but there's not enough bile to carry them out. Everything backs up. Pain under the right rib cage, headaches, especially on the right side of the head, neck tension, nausea. They think the detox is making them sick. And in a way it is. But not because detoxing is bad. Because they skipped the foundation. They tried to flush the system without making sure the pipes were clear first. If you're ever going to do any kind of detox protocol, support bile flow first. Start a few days before. Give your body time to ramp up bile production and make sure the pathways are open. Then, when toxins start mobilizing, they actually have somewhere to go. The takeaway here is a shift in thinking. Stop obsessing over how many toxins you're exposed to. You can't live in a bubble. Plastics, forever chemicals, pesticides, polluted air, processed food ingredients, they're everywhere. You can't avoid all of it no matter how careful you are. What you can do is build a detoxification system strong enough to handle what comes at it. The raw materials are simple. Quality protein for amino acids, selenium from whole food sources, a functioning thyroid, adequate bile, a healthy gut. Fix those foundations, and your body does what it was designed to do. It cleans house on its own. Now, glutathione is powerful. But there's actually another antioxidant working inside the mitochondria that may be even more important for energy production and cellular protection. That's a topic for another time.